Hello there, guys. Welcome back to my channel for another Premier League preview stream ahead of Chelsea taking on Brentford, obviously in the Premier League, hence it's a Premier League preview stream. I'm still not fully over last weekend, I will be honest. It still feels absolutely gut-wrenching, the fact that we played so well, were 2-0 up, and then threw it all away. And yes, I'm still a bit annoyed at Sanchez, but at the whole situation, I'm just annoyed. And Pice was tweeting about it in the middle of the week. It's like, you want to get excited for this Brentford game, but this Brentford game is exactly the type of game that we tend to have problems with. And that coming after the Arsenal game is like the last thing we need right now. So hopefully Pice is not right, essentially, and we just get a wonderful victory tomorrow, and that would be beautiful. But there is plenty of stuff to actually talk about that's even kind of slightly besides the game tomorrow specifically, because Mauricio Pochettino has, and I have to give a shout out to Ollie here. He was in the chat earlier. I'm not sure if he's here now, but I have to give a shout out to Ollie here. When we were talking after the game last week, he said maybe that just isn't a set penalty taker. And I was like, surely there's no way, because I personally didn't see Pochettino as the type of guy that would do things like that. But turns out, Pochettino has now confirmed that there is no set penalty taker at Chelsea. There's a few players that are down to take penalties, and it's just, sort it on the pitch. Whoever's feeling it does it. My problem with it is, what if multiple people feel it? How do you then decide, right? But yeah, we'll get into that discussion a little bit later. And Nkunku is fit soon, or returns to training soon, or whatever. We'll talk about the detail about that in a second. Should Robert Sanchez get dropped or punished in some sort of other way? I don't know. It won't happen, but we'll discuss it regardless. Charlie, I'll start with you. Thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it very much. I don't think I've spoken to you since the Arsenal game. I know it's a while back already now. By the way, just quickly, I hate no midweek games. They sound to really annoy me. In the middle of the week, I get so bored. I'm like, give me Chelsea, man.
Yeah, it is boring, mate. Like, it's sort of it's all right for a little bit when there's no Champions League games and stuff. But yeah, when you've had the midweek fixtures this week and you're not doing anything and there's not really much news happening, yeah, it's boring. At least we got a midweek game next week, so we can look forward to that. Yeah, and obviously the Arsenal game was frustrating. Of course, we know that. But I think once the the dust settled on the irritating thing that we threw it away, there's actually loads of positives to take, and we just got to take them into this game against Brentford and make sure that we win. It's kind of as simple as that, really. Just take those positives that we saw against Arsenal and carry those forward and keep building on it. Because, all right, apart from the last 13 minutes, there was 77 minutes or 81 minutes really until 84 minutes you could say, because even when we were 2-1, we're still winning. It's probably about 80 odd minutes of very good football, nullifying one of the best teams in the league. So that in itself is huge progress. So I think we can take a lot of positives from that game, and we have made significant progress. But there's no denying the fact that we have to stop making individual mistakes, and we have to hold on to these advantages and convert these performances into 3 points rather than 1 point or no points.
Exactly. I'll get to Pice in a second. I want to follow up on that, Charlie, actually, because what I'm wondering sometimes, and not about you specifically, also about my own thoughts, right, is how, as I completely agree, we have to take the positives, we have to take it from here. That's how you have to approach it. But how far does that go, right? Because obviously we're seeing now potentially Everton getting deducted 12 points for breaching financial restrictions of the Premier League. And I'm like, if we don't make Europe, that could be us. I'm not saying if we don't make it this year, but if we don't make it another 1 or 2 seasons, I'm not saying it will be us, but it could be us. I'm sure Everton fans and Everton owners 2 years ago said, nah, no way, we got this covered. But they spent like they were aiming to be in the Europa League. Unfortunately, they never made it to the Europa League. They only ever nearly got relegated. And that's why they're in the situation they're in. So how far does this take the positives go? Because it's nearly November now. And I know we got a couple of good wins before this Arsenal game, but we need to start catching up at some point if we want to get into these European places, and for financial reasons, and also player pull to some extent, because the longer you're out of the Champions League, the more that players will potentially feel like, will we get into it next year? Will we get into it next year? And obviously Champions League is a big pull for players. So does that point come for you where it's like, okay, yeah, it's good that we played well and there's positives to take, but there will come a point like last season. I'm not saying it's yet, but there will come a point like last season where you're like, top 4 ain't happening anymore. Okay, it might be top 5. We'll find out later in the season. But there does come that point where I'm like, yes, it's progress. Yes, it's a project, but we need Europe so badly because of how big we've spent. that it's kind of like, I don't know where and when that line is drawn about when it's okay to just take positives, you know?
No, I get what you're saying, and ultimately, it's a results-based business. If we don't pick up the points that we need, then there's only so far those positives goes, because if you're not converting those positives into the results, then it's not really worth saying going on about them, because ultimately, like, you'd rather have less positives and win than a load of positives but we didn't win. I don't think we're at that stage yet. I don't think we're near that stage, but I would say that if we get towards Christmas and after this run of fixtures until the next run of fixtures kind of up till December, our tricky run and whatnot. Like, if we're, 10, we're about 7 or 8 points off the top 5 at the moment. If that then turns into 12 or 15 points after this run of fixtures up to the international break in November, then you can start saying, well, actually, do you know what? Despite the positives,
we're actually 8 points of 4th right now.
8 points of 4th right now. So, if that 8 points stays the same, or it doesn't increase or whatever, and then I think we'll be all right, and I think we can turn it around in the second half of the season with the players we've got coming back. But if that were to go to 10, 12, even dare say 15 points, then you're looking at the season in a totally different way. You're looking at a situation where you might be out of the Champions League contention before December, which is sort of be unheard of. So. Yeah, I'm not worried, but I think it's fair to say that, if we were started dropping more points, dropping, that number of points off the Champions League spaces, and I think it's a fair point to say that, ultimately, you can't really keep saying there's positives when you're not getting the results. But I don't think we're there at this point. Well, certainly I'm not anyway.
I agree with you, mate. My worry is that when I look at the top 4, who's in there, obviously Spurs currently top, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. Now, the Chelsea fan in me, and having seen Tottenham over the last, however long I've been alive, expects Tottenham to fall off at some point. But what if they don't? Because I don't think the other 3 will. So it's like, it's not only is it about us needing to actually get results, it's that we need to get more results than the other teams. And if they don't start dropping points at some point, then we're in trouble even already now, in a way. Because, like, catching up 8 points, even if we become great now, right? Or even if we get into a rhythm where we pick up good points consistently, we're not going to win every game. So are we going to, that's my question. Are we, is arguably 8 points, or to Spurs 11 points? Is that already too much? I don't know.
That's why the games against the teams we're competing with are so important, because obviously, we need to rely on other teams to drop points already. But if we can take points off those teams and take the maximum amount of points off those teams, that's where we've got to cash in. Of course, you need to beat, the teams down the bottom and beneath you and whatnot. But it's massively important that you beat the teams that you're competing with and take 3 points off there. Because if we beat, whoever it is that's above us, let's just say, we beat Spurs, for example. That's 3 points we've taken off them. Let's say we were to beat, Newcastle, 3 off them. You've got to start doing what you can before you start relying on other people. So we need to be taking the points off the teams above us, and then obviously hope that other sides can also do us a favour. You don't want to be solely relying on other teams. We aren't at that stage yet, but we are getting to a point now where we have to win some of these big games, which is why it made throwing away the 2 points last weekend so disappointing, because we needed that and we didn't get it. So we need to find it against Spurs, we need to find it against Newcastle, or we need to find it against Man City. We've got to find it against somewhere, because we need to start winning against the big teams and closing the gap above us, and making sure that we're in control of it rather than not being in control of it.
Exactly, and that's what makes the game against Tottenham on November 6th such a big game. Like, it's away to them, they're in incredible form, but it's almost a must-win game in a weird way. And it's kind of crazy if we want to keep Champions League football a realistic topic. Obviously, again, it could end up being top 5 that does the job, and that makes the whole thing quite a bit easier. But we'll get to that. By the way, hello everybody watching. Hello Ricky, hello Ashraf, hello RD, hello Joseph, and hello everybody that hasn't said anything in the chat yet. Tell me how you're doing. Pys, I finally come to you. My apologies. I also haven't spoken to you on stream, at least, about the Arsenal game. So I'm not necessarily going to ask you in as much detail as I did with Charlie. But just quickly, nearly a week later, what's the overwhelming feeling? Have you managed to take the positive, or is it still the annoyance that we bottled it?
I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think it's the way you think. You have to look at it. Like, I think you can look at it in two ways. Like, you can just look at the positives and, yeah, we played really well, but you can also be a bit pessimistic and say, like, for example, when I was in the ground, when Arsenal scored that first goal, I thought, yeah, we've bottled it. We'll draw or lose. Like, there's no belief in me yet.
Honestly, I was surprised we didn't lose it at the end. Considering they made it 2-2 after 84 minutes already.
5 minutes longer that game, we lose.
Yeah, it's like the team is doing well, but they don't give you that like sense of security yet. And that's because we're a young team and we've not played together long. So, if we had, back in the day, a couple of older players, more experienced players seasoned together in the big games, we used to get through then. But I just felt like, Arsenal, when they scored, they've been together. They went through that title race last season. They've got their mentality to come back. They're going to come at us, and I don't think we're going to be able to stop it. And obviously, we wasn't able to stop it. So, yeah, I mean, the Premier League is harder than ever. You've also got Aston Villa, who are doing amazing this season as well.
Yeah.
They're right up there. For me,
Newcastle started off bad, but then now they've really found form again. So they're going to be up there too, man.
They will, because the thing is with Newcastle is they're so good at home. That's their thing, is they're really good at home. And that's what carries them through.
I mean, maybe Tonali being suspended could hurt them, but I don't
think he's done that great for them, though, anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, he's not made a massive impact. Obviously, he was
but it's like it costs them even more depth, right? Like, they're already, their squad is maybe not fully ready for the Champions League double.
They'll go and get someone in January, whether it's a Calvin Phillips on loan or something like that. They'll get someone to replace him.
But Ruben Neves talk, which I found a bit crazy, because he just went to Saudi Arabia this summer.
It'll be a loan deal, because I think the season, I don't know when the season. It didn't really make sense though, because the season don't finish until end of May in Saudi. So why would Al Hilal let one of their best players go to Newcastle halfway through the season?
Well, probably because of who owns Newcastle, mate. That's a whole separate discussion. But yeah, I think you make a good point, Pies. It's kind of really about how you look at it yourself. Obviously, I tried to be positive because I don't want to be negative if I can help it. But like I say, then still there's questions that I kind of posed to Charlie, like when comes the point where it's too late to take the positives? Because yeah, it's all well and good, but the problem is also we don't really know the financial situation. We don't know how important it is to get Europe this season. So
for me, we need to be breaking it. We need to finish top 6 this season. I think that's where we need to finish, and there's no excuse why we shouldn't. I mean, the squad we've got, like, we can't be losing games or drawing games like tomorrow. We can't lose against Forest again this season like we did at home. Like, we got to stop dropping these. There's no disrespect to Brentford, but we should be winning tomorrow with the quality we've got. And it's just like the fact that, you can call me pessimistic or whatever, but the literal proof this season that, you go into a game against a so-called lesser side and we literally, like, we may play all right, but we don't win. And it's like, I think we've won like 2 games in like the last 12 matches or something at Stamford Bridge. I was reading. It's horrendous form. Like, it really is. It's terrible. I don't really know how you can have confidence going into this game.
Luton's the only home game we've won in the league, isn't it?
And we struggled against them until Sterling scored that individual goal as well. Like, we was passing the ball around. We didn't really look like scoring until Sterling did that bit of magic. So, as far I am really looking forward to the game tomorrow. I really am, because we're playing well and we've got some exciting players that I want to watch. But it doesn't mean that, I think we're going to win. We might win. It will be great if we do win, because we need these results. But previous recent history has shown us that these types of games are the ones that we draw or lose.
Brentford have beaten us the last 2 years at Stamford Bridge, haven't they? They beat us 2-0 last
I looked up. Our last 6 matches, I think, have been 3 or last 7 is like 2 wins apiece and a draw. So I think the last 5, I think so.
Yeah, they've definitely won the last 2 at the Bridge, because they beat us 2-0 last year, and I think the season before they beat us 4-1.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or was it 4-2? I can't remember. But Rudiger scored the scream and then all of a sudden capitulated.
Brentford are kind of like an us as well. Like, they play really bad against the smaller teams, and then the bigger teams, they turn up. It's really annoying. So
it just suits their tactics, right? The way they play, it just suits perfectly playing a bigger team. And for us, it's exactly the opposite. It's a Chelsea problem in and of itself anyway, like on the past managers. But it's also a Pochettino problem, a thing that he struggled with even in his better times at Spurs. If he struggled against something, I know his top 6 away record was really poor in terms of winning, but he did still often get decent draws, right? But against breaking down low blocks, that's his issue, and that's always been his issue. And that's why, to be fair, that's most managers' issues. That's where the cream of the crop usually separates itself from the very good ones. And I'm not saying Poch can't do that, but it's just like when you have a young team, when you have a new team, when everything's a bit all over the shop, and then your struggles, your weaknesses just get highlighted even more, which is what you worry about tomorrow. But the biggest thing is just confidence. The biggest thing how to beat that problem of breaking down low blocks is do it on a couple of occasions, and then you get so confident that you will do it that you are more likely to actually do it every new time that you go against it. So yeah it's a tough
our biggest hope tomorrow is Cole Palmer, because I tell you what, this kid's passing and like the passes he finds is suited for tomorrow. And I would say Mudryk as well. You know, if Mudryk can just keep running at the defense, I know he's going to play against more defenders, but if he can go near the box, get crosses in, you know, you have to hope luck goes for you as well sometimes. Like the Arsenal game, you know, the handball is still lucky. You know, we got that. So
and
we have to hope something.
Penalty was also a bit lucky.
Yeah, like we have to. Actually, by the way, on that, I read that it was actually the reason it was offside. The reason why it wasn't given. So.
Well, that's interesting. I thought that. So was this all made up that they were going to get another apology?
Oh, it was all made up. It was wrong. Yeah, I checked that. Yeah, but yeah,
good to know. Good to know, because I, to be honest, I was a bit in agreement. I'm like, I didn't know about the offside, and I thought I think we got away with it. Like, if you can't just clatter into a player hip first if you missed it. Well, you can't just do that. It doesn't matter, like if you're a goalie or not. But yeah, let's talk about, for me, this is a very interesting topic. I'm not sure 100% what I think about it yet, but Pochettino in today's press conference did, like I touched on at the beginning already, confirm that we have no such thing as a designated penalty taker at Chelsea. He said there are a few players who can take the penalty. It's about their feelings. As the coaching staff, we give them the responsibility to decide on the pitch. It's not only one player that is going... that this player is going to be in charge. It shows that Cole was ready to take the 2 penalties he took. Normally, it is going to be him if he is on the pitch. But if not, I'd be happy with Raheem, with Nico. For me, the most important thing is to have the decision and the personality to go. See, I mean, this part is also interesting. So he does kind of hint, if Palmer is on the pitch, it kind of should be him, or it's Sterling. So it is a little bit, there is one.
Sterling is dreadful at penalties. I don't even know why he's on the list.
Yeah,
I think I saw I think he missed, maybe I'm wrong, I think it was 4 out of his last 7 he's missed in the Premier League. That's dreadful if that's true. Was it 4 out of his last 7? Something like that.
But if Sterling was like one of the designated takers, why did Enzo take it against West Ham?
I don't understand this. I think this is ludicrous. I don't know about you guys.
I wouldn't be surprised if at the time Enzo was the penalty taker, but then he took it.
This for me is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. I mean, when Nkunku comes back, he should take the penalties because he's fantastic at them.
Well, even if Palmer hasn't missed any up till that point.
Well, you know, no, I'd keep Palmer in that case, but I think for Nkunku's confidence and stuff like that, I think he should be, because I think he's very good at penalties. So I'd imagine he probably takes over at that point, but. In terms of now, I think this is ridiculous. Like, how you don't have... Like, he was talking about, it's based on feeling, and I get that, but you might have 3 players that feel like they can score in that particular moment, in that match, in that game.
I mean, right now, like, it must be Palmer right now, surely. He's taken the last 2.
It doesn't just cause arguments, though. Like, he's literally said, as coaching staff, we give them a responsibility to decide. So it's like...
We can't be having a conversation on the pitch every time there's a penalty.
And that's what it's going to be like.
To me, it's just that causes issue, that puts more pressure on the guy that does end up taking it if there is a bit of a discussion before, because you're like, if you then do miss it, you look like a mug compared to your teammate, not like you don't.
You know what the problem with this is? The problem with this is that, like, Charlie's right, it may be Palmer, but what happens if, like, Sterling or Mudryk goes on a mad run, takes on 2-3 players, wins a penalty, and... Like, they're going to want to take it, like, because they've just done that they've done that work. It's like, okay, that's my penalty. Like, it's just, there should be a penalty taker. I just don't understand this. It's crazy.
I agree. I mean, on that, theoretical situation that you just touched on, Pies, I don't mind it if there is a set one, right? If, say, Palmer is the set penalty taker, but then Mudryk or Sterling go on a great run and they feel like it's kind of my penalty. And then they just ask this designated penalty taker, can I take it? And then The designated one says yes or no. But if he says no, that's the end of it. There is no argument after. There is no discussion after. There needs to be one that has the final word. And that's the part that's the small issue I have with it, because it's like, okay, fair enough. These are adults. Give them a responsibility. That's fine. But if there is no one that has a final word, how is it decided? Because if 3 players are like, I want to take it, and none of them back down, then how are you ever going to decide? So there needs to be someone that has the final word.
I feel like this might be part of Poch testing the leadership in his squad as well. Like in his head, he may have a penalty taker. Like right now it's Palmer anyway, but like maybe he's doing this to sort of see how, players react and that sort of thing. Like this could also be like a mental thing, maybe a bit deep, just deeper thinking. Like maybe he's monitoring, what goes on when we get a penalty, and just in general, like what happens as players, to find out who's the ones that, who's acting mature, like who's, becoming leaders in the squad. Because he mentioned like the other week how like we've got such a long squad and like leaders will emerge. So like maybe this is a way to like test how, like who the leaders are. And that type of thing.
It was interesting that Enzo was telling Sterling to give the ball to Palmer as well.
And Enzo must have so much respect in the squad, because Sterling is literally like the most senior player, apart from Silva, in our squad. Like he's done everything in the Premier League, and he backed down. Like that's crazy for Enzo to do that, and they're a young player. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's probably more of a, outvoted situation, because Enzo said like, nah,
unless I don't know what you guys think. I personally disagree, but Liam Toomey said that his reading of the situation was that Sterling actually tried to give it to Enzo, and then Enzo pointed and said give it to Palmer. But I don't know. I personally
judging by Poch's comments here that we can read here as well, the fact that Pochettino said, where is it? Normally, it's going to be him, Cole Palmer, if he's on the pitch. But if not, I'd be happy with Raheem. With Nico.
Yeah.
Didn't even mention Enzo. So I'm not sure if that theory from Liam Toomey holds up, if I'm being perfectly honest. But Charlie, where do you stand on this? Because, like I say, I don't think it's a big deal as such. Even when I see the comment here from Ricky, he says they should be professionals and act like it. Shouldn't have a housewives drama over who takes the pen. Act like men, not prima donnas. I agree with you. But the problem is, if there is if there's nothing agreed beforehand, how is acting professional? Because everyone wants to take it, or a few players say want to take it. Someone needs to say, okay, I'm not taking it then. If there isn't a pre-agreed one to take it.
It has to be agreed. It has to be agreed beforehand. Like, you do not want a situation where every time there's a penalty, there's like 2 or 3 players on the pitch arguing over it. There might not be a designated taker, but if someone's like, front of the queue right now, like Cole Palmer is, then the other guys need to accept that. Look, all right, he scored his last 2. He's obviously taking them. If he were to miss a couple, then someone else might step in. It's about establishing it before the game, and then those other players on the pitch where penalties awarded, look, as frustrating as they might find it, you're not taking the penalties right now. So just step aside. Like for me, it's not a big deal as long as people understand the situation. As long as it's all clear going onto the pitch, and then it's up to those players when a decision's awarded that they don't then suddenly go back on what they agreed before and start kind of acting up and causing a fuss. That for me is when it becomes a problem. If it's not pre-agreed, or if players start arguing amongst themselves. As long as it's pre-agreed and everyone sticks to it, then I don't have a massive issue with it.
I agree, and I don't even in general mind if it's like, okay, let's put the responsibility on the players. But what I think the staff then should say is tell the players, decide before the game. You can decide in the dressing room before the game. I don't mind. You don't need to.
It's clearly decided before the game, though. Surely they're not deciding on the pitch there and then.
Well, I think so, but I mean, these quotes here don't word it like that. But I swear, some other quotes I read about Poch speaking about this, I didn't have time today to watch it, unfortunately. Was like it's just decided on the pitch, whoever feels like it type vibe, and it's just strange to me. I just don't really get the concept. And also, like, now Palmer has taken 2 and scored 2. Now it shouldn't even be a debate, in my opinion. No. If he misses one, then we can talk about it again. But now that he scored 2, shouldn't even be a question. Okay, if Nkunku comes back, maybe then it's something to discuss again, I suppose. But it's a question of, does Palmer even play when Nkunku is back? We'll have to wait and see about him. By the way, just a quick one: isn't it crazy how Palmer and Nkunku have not even played or trained together yet? because Nkunku got injured before we signed Palmer, and like it's nearly November, and that's that's kind of crazy. I don't know.
It's also kind of weird. Do you think we would have even signed Palmer if Nkunku didn't get injured?
Probably not, to be honest.
Like,
do you think so, Pice?
I don't know.
What's that?
Would we have signed Palmer if Nkunku didn't get injured?
Would we have signed Palmer
if Nkunku didn't get injured?
Tough question, isn't it?
No,
so I think it's plausible we might not have done.
I don't know though, because you know what, Chelsea are opportunistic. So like, I don't know.
I mean, it might have made us more likely to pursue the Olise situation a bit more. Now, Olise is still not fit now, which obviously in hindsight makes it look good that we didn't go for him. But if Nkunku never got injured, it wouldn't be so much of a problem if the person we signed was injured instead. Do you know what I mean?
The thing with Nkunku is like, I mean, didn't the last couple or maybe the last match he was playing on the left, wasn't he? And I know, like Palmer was like mooted to be a 10/, but he was on the right. He's right wing as well.
But Mudryk wasn't fully fit in preseason, so maybe that was part of it. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But although I don't know about what you guys think, but I see the way Gallagher plays as a number 10 in this, and it's like, I don't know if Nkunku can do all that running back and forward. Like it's going to be weird to see where he fits in and plays. Obviously, he's going to start, but it's like, who's going to drop out when he comes back? It's going to be really interesting.
It's going to even for tomorrow. I mean, we'll get to the team to talk about the lineup later. Even for tomorrow, it's interesting.
There's a lot of selection dilemmas for tomorrow. Obviously, Reece James is now not one because Poch said he's not fit to start, but there's still a number of decisions to be made.
Exactly that. But yeah, I think we can all agree that we would prefer if there was a set penalty taker. But I think after taking two, especially one against Arsenal, big pressure, I don't think for the time being, until he potentially misses one, it's going to be a conversation, a problem again with Palmer. But yeah, maybe I don't mind your theory, Pies, honestly, that it's maybe Poch testing them a little bit rather than taking always full control to find out about leadership characters and stuff like that. I don't think it's completely implausible, if that makes sense. But because it's still part of a project and a process, right? So maybe these are the type of things that Poch wants to figure out and find out about his young team before we get to like a stage where we want to, or when we are challenging for titles and when we are challenging for trophies. Because by that point, you want to have it figured out. Now that we are in this limbo situation, you might as well use that to figure out these types of things, I suppose. So I guess that is one way of looking at it. Now, let's talk a bit more about injury news, because that's not great either. First, we open up the big one, to like the injury list. It's down to 7, which is really good compared to a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I'll start with you, Pies. Armando Broja is back out, or out again, or still out, whatever. But he was in training already a couple of days ago. And now I'm not sure if he's now not in training anymore, or if he was in training, but they still were always were still managing. It's a weird situation that really annoys me, especially because it's the other knee. I'm like, how long does this happen? Like, it's just, and because Jackson is back now, it's not as deep. But when I watched Jackson play in the second half against Arsenal, I'm like, oof, I do miss Broja. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I miss Broja as well. I miss that like option, off the bench, and even starting. You got someone different. Like they play different. So yeah, I mean, they both like to run in behind, to be fair. But like, obviously, Broja's more stronger. I think Broja's more of a striker in quotation marks. Like I just get that vibe from him. Like he's more of a killer in front of goal. Like if, for example, the Arsenal chants, like Broja's just smacking that. I think like Jackson just sort of throws, and it's like, it's just annoying. I like Jackson, but you can tell he's still very raw. So yeah, I mean this. It's just funny, isn't it? Because like last week it was irritation. Same thing again. It's like I thought, okay, he'll be back next game. Now he's still being treated for it. So what is it? Is it irritation or is it another injury?
That he was in training in the meantime.
It's just like, what is this? Is it irritation or is it a setback? Like, just call it what it is. Surely irritation doesn't last.
You want him to be available. Because obviously he needs minutes because he's not played a lot of football. Yeah. The Blackburn game coming up on Wednesday. Like, ideally he'd be leading the line for that game. But if this is still a problem, he's gonna miss that game. Exactly.
So it's like, because the irritation is bad enough that he's not even in the squad. Like if the situation was, okay, his knee's a bit irritated, so he can't play more than half an hour or more than 20 minutes, that's fair enough.
Can't even give us 5.
An irritation, but he can't even be on the bench.
Yeah, like he doesn't even make the squad. That's terrible.
Yeah, like maybe we're just overdoing it by being super careful now because we're so scared of the bad injuries like we've had over the last 2 years. But like when you think back, maybe it's also just that football has changed. But when you think back about Gary Cahill and David Luiz played the Champions League final on one leg. Now, I know we're not playing Champions League finals right now, and I'm sure for a Champions League final, Broja would be fit right now. I get that. But still, David Luiz and Gary Cahill played it on one leg. The other hamstring was done, and they still managed to get through 120 minutes of penalties. Like David Luiz even took a penalty and took a runoff from like bloody the halfway line, and they still managed.
This Chukwuemeka setback's been sizable. It's only been like about 2 weeks now. That
exactly, and no one's.
But he was in the squad for Burnley though.
Exactly, like he had another knee setback as well. Like his knee started hurting again. It's just weird. Like, terrible. And Lavia obviously had a setback as well. Let's see, obviously with Nkunku, Chalobah, we don't even want to bloody talk about. Just do some Pilates, Chelsea, shall we? Just start with that.
Mate, Chalobah won't play for us again.
No, probably not, to be honest, mate. But then I'm like, if he's injured from like Fabrizio.
That was a 1 month hamstring injury, wasn't it? From like end of pre-season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was even mid of preseason. I can't remember what game it was, but yeah,
it was.
And then he had a setback, and then he had another setback because Fabrizio posted a couple of weeks ago that he was like, "Yeah, Chalobah is likely to leave in January because he wants minutes." I'm like, "What do you mean he wants minutes? He's been injured all season. It's not like he could have had minutes but just wasn't selected. He hasn't been fit and available. So who will sign him? In January, especially for any half decent money, it's a big question. But on a bit more of a positive note, there's a bit more injury news as such, because there are a few players that are kind of fit but kind of not. Pochettino was speaking about Reece James, Christopher Nkunku, and also, wasn't he talking about someone else as well? I swear there was a third one he was talking about, no? Maybe I've messed it up. Regardless, Reece James, start with him. Unfortunately, still not fit to start. As Poch said here, that's not what I wanted to do. Reece is still not ready to start. The coach explains at his pre-match press conference he's doing well and has been training really well. He's really close, but tomorrow he's going to be on the bench.
He'll start against Blackburn. I've always said like it makes sense to ease him in. The reason we signed Gusto was because we don't need to rush Reece James back. So for me, he got 15 odd minutes against Arsenal. Give him 20, 25 or half an hour in this game. Maybe playing for an hour against Blackburn. That's how we need to be easing him back in, because we don't want to just chuck him in and then miss him again for another fucking 2 months or whatever it might be. So I've always said that James shouldn't be starting this game. Even if he was fit to start, he shouldn't be starting. You've got to look after these players and ease them in. And now you've got the options to do so. There's no reason not to. So I would never have started Reece in this game anyway. And I'm glad that Poch is kind of, doing the same thing and saying, look, he's not fit to play. Let's give him half an hour this time, or 25 minutes or whatever, and just build him up.
To be honest, I wouldn't even start him against Blackburn. I'd give him another half an hour against Blackburn and then start him against Spurs. Because if you start him against Blackburn, the question is, can he start the next game? Considering it's midweek to weekend, even to the Spurs
Monday though, isn't it? It's a Wednesday to Monday.
Yeah, that is true. That is a long time. But say he plays half an hour tomorrow, is he then ready to play 60 minutes on Wednesday? Like, I don't know.
Or they just pre-agree a half each on Wednesday or something like that.
Potentially, absolutely. But Pice, you in agreement of the way Poch seems to be handling things with Reece James at the moment?
I mean, I don't really know the full situation, but if it is what we probably think it is in terms of like holding him back a little bit, then yeah, sure. I mean, Gusto, apart from the second goal, which obviously it seems funny to say apart from, because that literally is technically what cost us the draw. But apart from that, he played very, very, very good. I thought he was amazing in that game. Yeah. Done brilliant. So well against Martinelli. So yeah, I think Gusto has been brilliant, and I don't mind him playing again tomorrow. So
mate, obviously because our midfield has been very good as well, it's even less necessary. But the more Gusto is playing like this, I'm like, Reece James is that good. In my opinion, he could be a world-class in multiple positions on the football pitch. I know he would need to learn certain things, but the more I'm like, if Reece James ever comes to a point where he doesn't manage to stay fit for a sustained period of time, it's almost a waste putting Gusto on the bench. Like, Gusto is so good. You can't just play Gusto at right back and find another position for Reece James because he's still our best player. Do you know what I mean? But I don't think that's going to happen. But it's like, if that we get to a point where both of them are fit for a long time, it's almost a little bit of a waste, as weird as that is to say. But let's get to Christopher Nkunku. There was a little bit of confusion in our group chat because Darmesh all of a sudden thought he might play tomorrow, which is not quite happening. But yeah, one of those, players that could be coming back fairly soon is Christopher Nkunku. According to Pochettino, he says Nkunku is making good progress in his recovery and has outlined what the 25-year-old can add to the Chelsea attack when fit. He's doing really, really well. He's working really hard. He's close, and hopefully as soon as possible, we can have him involved again. He's a really important player for us. And when he says involved again, he means training for the time being. He's training on the grass nowadays, but still training on the grass on his own for now. And hopefully maybe next week or whenever, at least joining part of team training, hopefully soon full team training. I still don't think he'll be back sooner than after the next international break. And even then, we'll probably get him off the bench 2 or 3, 4, 5 times before we ever see him start a game, in my opinion anyway. Especially after how he's treating Reece James now, that's what I'm expecting for Christopher Nkunku. But in general, still good news, I suppose. But I'm really hesitant to put too much hope and faith in Nkunku because, well, first of all, by the time he comes back, he will have been injured for 4 months. But also, other than 3 preseason games, he won't have played with any of these players. So, if we put too much faith in Nkunku, first of all, that puts a lot of pressure on him. And if that doesn't work out, we're almost forcing another transfer flop. And also, what I'm really concerned about, especially with Poch saying that he can get us goals and that's what we miss and everything, that we're not going to be as careful with him as we are with Reece James, that we're going to rush him. Is that something you worry about as well, Pais? That because of how important we might find Nkunku in terms of getting goals, that we'll rush him back? Or do you think we'll stay firm and make sure nothing's happening too quickly?
No, I don't think we'll rush him back. I feel like we will get goals in the meantime. I know we're still struggling a little bit, but I think even when Nkunku comes back, I'm still confident we're going to sign someone in January for striker anyway. So, then probably having Nkunku in that number 10 spot is what I'd imagine. But, it's so difficult at the moment when you're watching Gallagher and, you've got, Palmer as well that can play there and Chukwuemeka as well. Let's not forget, he was playing really well as well before his injury. So it's going to be really interesting. But, I'm a little bit worried that the fans might treat Nkunku a bit unfairly. Like, if he comes back and he's like shit for 3 games, let's hope he's really good the first game back. But say he does start off rough and it's like, what our fans are like. Everyone's going to be like, we waited for this guy to come back and he's not doing anything. But to be fair, I did put a post out the other day and I can't remember who reported it, but a journalist basically said, I think it was The Athletic, they said Chelsea Chelsea believe their season turns around when Nkunku comes back. He was going to get the goals, and a lot of people, I'd say 90% of people were replying, "Well, that's just stupid and unfair." So, I do think people will back him. If he does play, or if he doesn't score goals as soon as he comes back, because he's been injured for 4 months, and I think a lot of people are being smart and realizing hang on a minute, if the club are actually saying, right, now you have to score 80% of our goals. He's not even played in the Premier League before. That's just stupid. So I hope Chelsea are really not that naive. I don't think they are, but some of the stuff that's being reported is kind of that's a bit dodgy. I don't like the sound of that. the amount of faith they're putting in him, it's chill out a bit. Jesus, no pressure, kid, sort of thing, isn't it? It's crazy.
Exactly. And I mean, this sentence from Pochettino is exactly like what you touched on. He's a player that can provide goals, and we have been missing goals. That is why we think he can be important for us. This proves he can score goals in the Bundesliga. Now, obviously, if the next run of fixtures go well, then I don't think there's much worry that we'll rush him back. But if we don't get wins, Pochettino, as Potter, as any other manager, they will in the end start to fear for their job. They all do. They always will.
And then it's only natural as well. If we were to not get wins or positive results, and then Nkunku's back fit again, then there's the pressure starts to build up from externally. Yeah, you're gonna chuck him back in when you're gonna put him in, because it's a potential difference maker. So look, I think we're in a good position where we're not in a desperate situation where, oh my God, we desperately need him back. Of course, we'd love to have him available and ready, but I don't think we're at a point where like, fuck, we're so desperate for him. I think Cole Palmer's doing a great job. Mudryk's doing a good job. Sterling, to an extent, has done a good job. Gallagher's done a lot better than we expect. I'm not saying we don't need Nkunku, but, we're not desperate. Right. You know what I mean? We're not, 100% desperate for Nkunku to return right now. It's not like we're struggling like fuck and we need him desperately. Yeah, of course we'd like to have him, but I don't think we're in that situation where we need to be rushing him or we need to be like thinking, oh great, how good is it going to be when Nkunku comes back? I think we've done a lot better than people would have expected without him. And I know we already signed him, but it will be like a new signing because he's not played for us. So, there are things to look forward to, but I don't think we're in a situation where we're desperate to get him back because actually we have done pretty well without him.
There you go. No, I do agree with that. So at the end of the day, you can really say it's down to the rest of the team that is currently fit to make sure we don't rush Nkunku back. Because if they perform, if they get results, if they get wins and score goals, there is less need to rush Nkunku back. So, it's kind of that. This is why it's a team game. It's not an individual situation. If the others do better, it's also better for the health and safety of Nkunku. So if Nkunku does get rushed back, he could kind of really sue the rest of the team, which obviously won't happen. But yeah, there you go. I do want to touch on some other topic after we've gone through the team, because I know Pys doesn't have endless amount of time, so I'm going to keep that for a little bit later. The last thing I want to discuss before Sorry?
I just said I'm all right for a bit if you want to.
All right, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. The one last thing I do want to talk about before we get into the team is the Robert Sanchez situation. Now, I brought this up because, Liam Toomey and The Athletic reported Chelsea believe in Dode Petrovic's potential too, but he is a lower cost bet on raw talent. Robert Sanchez is the number one, and Pochettino has given no hints that he will risk shattering his confidence by dropping him. Now, a lot of us, I think you probably less so, Charlie, because you're a little bit less, how do I best word it?
Harsh.
Emotional, hot-headed than maybe me and Pys are sometimes in annoying situations. But this wasn't my thumbnail after the game. I've tweeted it. I don't ever want to see him play for us again. Like Sanchez out. This is what Poch said after the game. We are so happy with him. Of course, he's disappointed and upset with his decision, but mistakes happen in football. This goal gave the belief to Arsenal. We can maybe read better the situation, the tempo, the timing. We can take risks on 77 minutes because it's our philosophy, but maybe there is another decision you can take. It's not to blame someone. It can happen. it will arrive with time, when to be calm and when to take risks. And we are still a really young team getting to know each other. The problem is Sanchez isn't that young. Like, if Sanchez was 20 or 21, fair play.
I think 25 for a goal. I'm not making excuses per se, but I don't think 25 for a goalkeeper is old. Like, goalkeepers develop at a much later age. I don't think 20. Yeah, look, goalkeepers develop at a later age. They hit their prime.
You're right, but it's still not young.
No, sure. But I think Poch sums it up perfectly. Like, I don't have a problem with playing out from the back. It's modern day football. Do I agree with it? At times, not really. I just think, what's wrong with just being a fucking goalkeeper? Why are we making them try and be as good as the ball at their feet as an outfield player? Like, do we really need that? But that's the way modern football's going. And we are going to see more of these mistakes when the principles are to play out from the back. But my thing is, as Poch just said there, is like, you needs to read the situation better. You should it is okay to abandon the principle of playing out from the back and just put your fucking foot through it when the situation dictates that it's okay to do that. And that Rice one was a prime example. The ball onto Gallagher, even if it had reached him, was putting him right in the shit anyway, if the ball had got to him.
I mean, so there was even a debate, did he even mean to play to Gallagher, or was it meant to Enzo? Like, when you watch it
was
could
meant.
Be.
You've got to read the situation better and use your brain and think, do you know what? We're 2-0 up. We're cruising in this game. Why am I going to try and play a risky pass, which might cost the team a goal potentially, when I can just put my foot through it? You're not going to get shouted at. You're not going to be dropped for abandoning the principles for one moment in the game. I just think it's about not being so obsessed with a principle and realizing when is okay to deviate away from playing out from the back. And that's something Sanchez needs to improve on, is his reading of the game and his understanding of situations and where you are at in the game at a set point in time. It's fine, play out from the back, do those things, but at the same time, realise when is the right time to abandon that and get rid. And I just don't think he's got that locked down yet.
No, exactly. I agree. And like, even the fact that he went in that situation, 2-0 up against Arsenal, we're kind of just seeing the game out. He went for that pass with his weak foot. Now, he's also had plenty of bad passes with his strong right foot. But with the weak foot, why would you even try it? It's just baffling to me. Like,
it's just a lack of management. It's a lack of, like, I think it's a lack of.
Do you think it's overconfidence? Because that's a little bit of a vibe that Sanchez gives up for me, a little bit. That,
I don't know if it's overconfidence.
I don't want to say overconfident necessarily. He seems very confident, but when you make mistakes and you seem very confident, that quickly turns into feeling or seeming overconfident.
I don't know if it's confidence. It might just be like not an obsession, but like a want to stick to the principles of play. That has been.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I fully agree with this, because look at the Arsenal game. How many times did Sanchez punt it? So I don't even think you can give him the excuse, I wanted to stick to the philosophy by passing it out. He punted it 15 times in that game before.
Yeah, no, agreed. I do agree with that, but I just think that, like, obviously he just misread the situation. And, you know, you are like, that's something that will come with more experience. Again, you could caveat that with, if he was better with the ball at his feet, which is actually not that good with the ball at his feet. Let's be honest. You know, I thought that he was one of the better goalkeepers with the ball at his feet. I'm not saying there's a small sample size, but I've not been that impressed with his distribution.
He's not awful, but you can't say he's amazing.
No, like, I mean, there's times in this game, it's in the Arsenal game, it cost us, particularly in that first half against Brighton in the Carabao Cup. Fucking horrendous. Some of the worst distribution I've seen from a goalkeeper. Like, he, on the whole, what I would say is, like, he actually has been pretty good for us. This Arsenal game was his first dog shit game for us. Like, the rest of them, he's actually been all right and done better than I think people would have expected. But
except that passing, like, he's basically been the opposite of what everyone expected. Because well, everyone was trying to tell me his passing is so great, it's better than Kepa, and then it turns out he was really good at saving shots, but the passing is his one main problem, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, no, mate, I hear it. Like, for me, I just want him to, and players in general, and you're going to get it with younger players. Like, I just want in-game management and decision making needs to be better. Like, the thought process, you've got to make decisions in a split second, you know, and it's, you know, and it's not easy, but that's never the right decision. Whether you've got 5 minutes to think about it or 1 second, like, just get rid of it. So, like, I think for me, like, I think his distribution's got to improve, and his decision making has to improve as well in key moments. Decision making has to be spot on, and if it's not, you get punished, which is exactly what happened. And yes, you can say, you know, that didn't necessarily cost us the game because it was 2-1. But as Poch says, you know, it gives Arsenal confidence. It gives the other team belief. It gets their fans up for it, and
it ruins our confidence as
well. It dents us. And momentum is so big in football. And that moment, even though it didn't make us draw the game, it was the catalyst for us shitting ourselves, basically.
And I also think if Sanchez doesn't make that mistake before, he also probably acts better on the second goal and maybe even stops it himself. But because he's obviously a little bit in his shell because he's just made a big mistake, that also makes him a little bit,
of course. And he starts on a second goal. He doubts himself a little bit. Look, he's obviously, he doesn't need us saying it. He knows that he fucked up. He knows that. I don't hate the guy. I don't think he's crap. I think he's had a fairly good start for us, but as I said, those two aspects of his game have got to improve and have to improve fast.
There you go. Just lastly, before I get to Pice on this, do you think he deserves to get a punishment, get dropped?
No.
Because I think against Blackburn, it has to be Petrovic.
Oh, yeah, no, it has to. No, I totally
tomorrow, if you're playing Petrovic against Blackburn, especially with the situation, like, we're not going to win the league, are we? So if we won a trophy, Carabao Cup is probably our best way to go. So you could argue, from that point of view, Blackburn is at least equally as important of a game, right? But if you're going to play him against Blackburn, you could argue you might as well play him tomorrow. Do you know what I
mean? No, I personally wouldn't, mate. We haven't seen him at all.
No, that's true.
So you're going into a complete unknown. And let's be honest, none of us really are MLS experts or have watched. I'll be honest, mate, I'd never heard of the geezer before we signed him.
Because I'm one of these guys, I almost refuse to watch like clips and compilations because I'm like, this is just going to give me a full sense of confidence because these clips are going to show the best bits. And then I actually watch him in reality and then I realize, shit, these were only the best bits. So yeah, it's a problem. Pies, I get to you. Where do you stand on the Sanchez situation? Like, do you think he deserves, purely for the mistake, to get dropped for 2 games like this one and Blackburn and then come back in? Or do you think he should stay in for this one and only then, Petrovic get a chance against Blackburn, hopefully? But I say that, who knows if even that's going to happen? Because against Wimbledon, it was still... Oh, against Wimbledon, Petrovic didn't have the work permit yet, actually. And against Brighton, I guess it was a Premier League opponent, so maybe I get it. But if Petrovic doesn't start against Blackburn, well, then what's even the point in signing him? My God.
Yeah, I'd drop him, to be honest. I'd drop him for tomorrow, and if Petrovic plays well tomorrow, I'd play him against Blackburn as well. I don't see how you can let a player make that type of mistake and let him get away with it. Like, me personally, I don't know, maybe I'm just more old school way of thinking a few seasons ago. Like, I think if we had Mourinho, I saw Fabregas saying somewhere that essentially, like, Pochettino should make him watch his performance back and then bench him afterwards after he's done and, like, be ruthless with it. Like, that's what Fabregas said, apparently. Right. So
big upset. Go
on. Yeah, no, I would drop him. I mean, he cost us the game pretty much.
Literally, like, Pochettino was sat there after the game saying he took Mudryk off because there's still things he needs to improve at. I'm like, excuse me, every game you take Mudryk off, we are worse after you've taken him off. Every game, and you're telling me Mudryk needs to improve on things, but then everybody else, we're not blaming individuals. Fuck off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only thing is obviously we don't know, like, what Petrovic, how good he is. So, like, that's the only...
That is the big problem. That's why I was so against him as a backup keeper. And then Poch is...
If you don't play him, then how the hell are you going to know how good he is? So it's like,
exactly.
it's two different things, isn't it? But you kind of want to go to the same outcome, which is, well, you have to play him. Like, it's about, I was so baffled when he played against Wimbledon. I was so baffled.
I think against Wimbledon, Petrovic didn't have a work permit yet. I think it's against Brighton that we all surprised.
But wasn't he on the bench, though? Wasn't he on the bench for that game?
I think he was in the end, but we didn't expect him to get the work permit by then or whatever. Like, it's a weird
one. Mean, Brighton understood it because, old team and stuff, but I mean, if he plays against Blackburn, like, why did we sign Petrovic? Like, why? Why is he here? Like, I don't understand that at all. So we just have to see what happens. But obviously, Sanchez is going to play tomorrow. Like, it's not even... There's no way he's going to get dropped.
No, I agree. Like, it won't. I mean, Nicky says here, mess up his confidence. Like I say, I think maybe that's what Sanchez needs because I feel he's a bit too confident sometimes. I mean, someone in the chat said arrogant. Maybe that he needs a little bit of a stamp down because my guy was throwing a hissy fit at Brighton and it got him a move to fucking Chelsea in the end of it. Like, that man thinks he can do whatever he wants.
I'm sorry as well.
This is way out of it in the end.
I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous as well. Like what Liam Toomey said about, like, there's no hints that Pochettino will drop him and then shatter his confidence. If he gets shattered his confidence from being dropped after he made the mistake, he shouldn't even be a Chelsea player anyway. Like, what is that?
He shouldn't in the first place.
Well,
that's a different debate. More in the sense of how is someone whose biggest game until now in his career has been Charlie? What's the motorway between London and Brighton?
I don't know, mate. Something.
M8 or something, or M4
it's
or whatever.
M something.
Yeah, well, whatever it may be. That's his biggest game of his career until he joined Chelsea. Brighton playing fucking Crystal Palace, and you're surprised that he bottled it against Arsenal. This is what happens. This is why you don't only sign inexperienced players at the top level if you want to be at the top level.
But then if we're going to do that, then there has to be an allowance that it's going to be mistakes. Like, otherwise, do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying we have to accept that and like, oh, it's okay because they're young or whatever. But what I'm saying is, though, if you're going to sign slightly inexperienced players or players that aren't necessarily that experienced playing for big teams, and you're asking to play out from the back as a goalkeeper, we're going to see more and more of these mistakes. Not just saying from Sanchez, but from goalkeepers in general, with the way that playing out from the back is going. So what I'm saying is, like, I understand that sometimes, people might want to go for an old school tough stance. I think that might have worked with previous managers back in the day, but like, I think now with the way modern day players are, they're a bit like, I don't want to say they're soft, but do you know what I mean? Like, they don't necessarily respond that well to that sort of treatment, as it were. I just think that, like, we have to accept, but there has to be like an admittance from people that these mistakes are going to happen. I don't think it should be one mistake and you're out, but I think if it should be
it should be out permanently, but out for one game.
But what's the point in that, though? Like, do you know what I mean? Because you're changing the keeper.
Because it sets a precedent that if you make a mistake, you fuck up and then you get dropped. It sets a precedent.
But then do it say that for every single outfield player? Like,
but Charlie, that happens. Charlie, that happens. Charlie, that happens though. Like, if outfield players, especially strikers or wingers, they make mistakes or something, they miss a chance. More than likely, they get benched. But the goalkeepers don't. Why is that?
Look at Mudryk. My guy hasn't got more than 3 starts in a row.
I think the goalkeeper is a different position. It's a specialist position. It's not like, you know, oh, we'll go 1 week, we'll go with Jackson, and then actually, do you know what, next game we'll chuck Broja there or whatever, or we'll have Palmer on the right one time. Actually, next game we're going to have Sterling there or whatever.
It's so weird because if Kepa
with the goalkeeper situation though, like, you need to build that understanding between the goalkeepers and the centre back partnership as a unit. And if you're constantly chopping and changing the goalkeeper, you're not getting that. I'm not saying we would be. But
I think
how do we know how good this Petrovic guy is? I'm not saying that he's crap or anything, but I just think it would be better to give him an opportunity in the cup game. And if Sanchez makes more mistakes and doesn't play that well, then of course, like any other player, his position should be in question. But I just think, yes, it was a big mistake and it ultimately led to our downfall in that Arsenal game. But I do think it's a little bit harsh to chuck him straight out. If there was like a more ready-made replacement in terms of we knew about him, we knew what he could offer, then maybe there's a bit more credence to that conversation. But the fact the replacement guy is an unknown who none of us have seen play.
But I would argue there's 2 options here because, yeah, you're right, we don't know, but the management does. So there's one of 2 things. Either they don't trust Petrovic or he's not good, and then he's a bad signing, right? Like, there's only these 2 options. Because, like, it just, if you go back to the summer, it makes the whole decision of when we sign Sanchez 2 weeks before realizing actually there's a chance we can get rid of Kepa just so stupid. Because if Kepa made this mistake, the fan base would literally organize a protest to drop him for the next game. Like, has Kepa, and maybe I'm just forgetting, I'm happy to be given an example. Has Kepa made a single mistake as bad as this one?
He's probably made plenty, Lawrence.
As high profile as against Arsenal, costing us a win.
Oh, bro, he's made quite a few errors.
Yeah, but
I remember Liverpool off the top of my head,
so.
he cost us the game. Liverpool in lockdown he was fucking dreadful in that game. Both the home and away game. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, but you're talking about not saving long shots again, aren't you?
No, the Mane one where he
the Mane one.
took the fucking ball and then Mane put it in the net. You know,
okay, I'll let you have that one. No, that's fair enough. But still, after Kepa does that, the whole fan base is on his case. But Sanchez's like, oh, yeah, give him another chance. Do you know what I mean? That just pisses me off.
Yeah, well, he's only been here, though, like a few months. Kepa was doing this for like 3 years. So it's been
absolutely. And it's not Sanchez's fault that we don't have a proper backup goalkeeper that no one trusts and no one knows if he's good or not. Like that's why they initially signed Sanchez, have Kepa first choice for a little while longer, and then Sanchez get experience at being at Chelsea and then take over. But because then Kepa left, Sanchez had to do it immediately, and now we're suffering from that, I guess. But hey, it is what it is now. We all agreed it will be Sanchez in goal tomorrow. So let's get into
there's no chance he's going to be dropped tomorrow.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But it does have to be Petrovic on Wednesday. I fully agree with that. It has to be him on Wednesday.
Absolutely. And if he plays well on Wednesday, I still wouldn't play him against Spurs.
You wouldn't play him against Spurs away.
No, you wouldn't. This is why I'm like, might as well give him tomorrow. If he does well tomorrow and Blackburn, then maybe he earned Spurs. But if it's only Blackburn...
I just don't think after... this is not me sticking up for Sanchez. This would be the same if it was anyone else in goal. I just don't think if you've made one mistake, then you should be straight out. And maybe that's just me being lenient or whatever. But I just think it's...
But is it one mistake, though? Because how many times has he passed the ball straight to the opponent? Just because he didn't get punished doesn't mean he's not made mistakes. It's because it wasn't one... He's not only made one mistake. That's the thing.
Well, as in like a mistake that's been costly. The other ones he's managed to redeem himself or save his own mistakes. But like he's going to play, and he just needs one of them games that nothing really happens. He doesn't have much to do. That's basically what he needs.
Exactly. I mean, if Messi makes a mistake, does he get dropped? No. Did that mean Timo Werner had to play every game? No. How are you comparing Alisson and fucking Sanchez?
It's different when you're one of the best in your position in the world. Like
literally, rather than coming from Brighton and being third choice goalie there. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be serious here.
Alisson doesn't get dropped because he's literally like the best goal in the world. That's why.
Ridiculous statement to make. Liverpool even bought him for like 70 odd million. You know, it's a joke. But yeah, Steve is right. He even fails to punch the ball. Like, it could have been. Well, apparently, Steve, we found out actually Arsenal was offside then. That's why it was never given as a penalty. I didn't know it either. We found out now. So there you go. But yeah, let's get into this team. My big thing is I want Palmer to start, but I want also Mudryk and Sterling to start. So who leaves the midfield? That's the big question.
Nah, bro, for me, Sterling gets binned off.
I would agree.
But because we're playing Brentford, I would like Mudryk, Sterling, and Palmer. Because of who we're playing. Against Arsenal is one thing. And then we absolutely needed the midfield we had. But against Brentford, I think we need more dangerous, attacking, creative players.
Yeah, we know Gallagher's going to play, though. So...
I'm not saying necessarily it should be Gallagher that could be dropped, but we'll get to it. It's not even dropped. I'm not even talking about dropping. We'll get to it as we get to it. Let's do the back four first. I don't really know what's happening with Disasi. He was obviously on the bench last week. I don't know if he's now fit to start or not. I don't know. But Charlie, I'll go with you first. What would be your back four?
Or we obviously know Gusto's playing right back, so that's an easy one to slot in. He's definitely
actually sorry, Charlie. I'm asking for your predicted 11, and then we'll discuss what we would want ourselves.
We're going to go predicted. Then Thiago
because you
Silva.
Put Sanchez in goal, otherwise I have to put Petrovic, don't I?
Yeah, Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
And,
left or right?
I'll have him right side, and then for me, mate, I'd have the same back four as it was against Arsenal. I know that might seem a bit harsh on Disasi, but at the same time, this back four worked well. I'm not saying that he wouldn't deserve to be in, but look, we're in a good. This is a good headache to have because we've got a situation now where you could argue that Disasi deserves to come back in given how well he's played this season. But then, given Cucurella's form, confidence player, you want to keep playing players when they're playing well. Like none of these players deserve to be dropped, basically. Yeah. So you're in a situation where
the Blackburn game, and if he does well,
and you can give Disasi and Badiashile the Blackburn game at centre half or whatever. So, like for me, I don't see a reason to switch it. But then, if Disasi were to come in, I wouldn't be like, oh, what the fuck's the gaffer doing? You know, I would be okay with it.
Depending on who he comes in for. If he comes in for Cucurella, I'll be fuming.
Yeah, Cucurella's has done very well. But like, look, if Disasi plays, he plays. But yeah, look, for me, there's no reason to change from this back line. In my opinion, so yeah, I'd keep.
Do you also think Potts will go with this?
I'm kind of in two minds about it. I think he'll be very tempted to bring Disasi back in for a height element because Brentford are quite big. So I think he could be tempted. I can't say 100%. I think he'll do it, but
if he would come back in, would you expect it for Cucurella and Chilwell back at left back, or do you think he would come in for Thiago?
Oh no. I personally, if Disasi comes in, then unfortunately, because I want Cucurella to play because he's done really well, I think it's only going to be Cucurella that misses out. I can't see Chilwell or Silva being replaced for this game.
There you go. I agree. I actually think he will go with this team, so I'm not even too concerned, even though you brought up the height argument, which is a fair argument. So now I'm a little bit less sure. Pys, I'll ask you one more time. If I asked you for your team, would you put Petrovic in goal?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I know it's not going to happen, but we're writing down Petrovic now so we can pick our own team. Because if we put Sanchez in goal and two of us actually would put Petrovic, well, then it's not our own team then, is it? So let's do this. Pys, do you agree with this back four? And what do you think Poch will do in terms of the back four?
Right. So no and no is the answer. So predicted will be Chilwell, Disasi, Silva, and Gusto. My team is Chilwell and left back, Disasi, Badiashile, and Gusto.
You've lost the plot, mate.
Full height at the back. We need it.
But, mate, Badiashile hasn't played football in 8 months. He can't just fucking start out of the blue.
I think he can. Why not? Why not?
Because name me one footballer that is. I know it's not actually 8 months. But
in my opinion, Badiashile is our best centre back, so he starts when he's fit.
That's all well and good, but surely not after being out for 7 months.
He can't be match fit though.
Like he's been trained, but he trained the whole of last week though, as well.
Again. Do you know what I mean?
He might be like obviously fit to train and all that, but there's no way he's match fit to start a Premier League game.
We have 5 subs. Just you bring him on for half an hour before starting.
He definitely has to play against He has to play against Blackburn 100%. But yeah,
Do we even know if he's that fit? Like, is he even that close to playing? Because I don't know. Was he on the bench
Well,
last game?
he's been training for 2 weeks, so I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But so is Reece James, and he's not playing. But yeah, was Badiashile on the bench last game? I don't remember.
Yeah, he was.
He was, wasn't he? Yeah, he was.
There you go. Well, it's interesting because to me, it's absolute crazy talk to drop Cucurella right now. That's insanity.
It is, but I think you have to look at game by game. And I mean, I would do something different in attack than what will happen. It's just, I feel like Cucurella, this game doesn't really suit him, to be honest, for me, in my opinion. I don't think Brentford have got that many, progressive attackers. So
he's
not going to have that.
Visser and that Sharda geezer.
But they don't start all of them, I don't think.
No.
So.
But I think Cucurella is the best player we have, and I mean that, at winning second balls. And that's Brentford's weapon. Long ball, win the second ball. And
I don't think he's going to have to defend much, though, 1v1. So I don't think he's going to have that game, like, in terms of action, like he did defensively against Arsenal. So I feel like you go with the height. And even though I hate Chilwell at left back, I think it might be out of necessity, because if not, like, if you just have one tall defender like Disasi, I don't think that's enough from corners tomorrow, especially with our midfield.
I hear that.
Like, we've got to have two small centre backs in there.
For me, and I know it's harsh on Thiago, it's harsh on every single one of these four because they all played really well against Arsenal. So it would be harsh.
It's just going to be out of these three in it because Gusto's not being dropped.
I'm telling you, I bet you any money he's going to play Chilwell at left back tomorrow. I bet you any money. I
think he probably will, and I'll be disappointed because I think it's well harsh on Cucurella. But
it is. But if you look at Brentford get a corner, they're going to score, bro. If Brentford get a corner,
now, how are you dropping the best player we had for 3 games in a row? Like
because each team is different. Like it's not you don't just play like say Jackson scored a hat trick against like I don't know like say Jackson scored a hat trick against Liverpool and we had a striker who was better against low blocks. You don't just go and play Jackson again. You play the striker against low blocks.
On a hat trick, you can't not play a striker.
Really, I look at it more game by game.
Confidence is more important in football than ability. Like. If you're confident,
I look at it with more of a tactical approach. I think it's more game by game with what team you choose.
But because Brentford play a 3-5-2, will the fullbacks be that necessary in terms of height?
I think corners, bro. They get a ton of
corners, but then take Thiago Silva out because he's the weirdly short guy for a centre back. The fullbacks don't need to be tall.
Well, they're not. I know obviously Disasi and that's bigger and whatnot, but. I mean, it's not like Chilwell and Silva are like fucking.
Chilwell is big.
Yeah.
But Silva is only 5'11". So
look, I think you do two things. I think you do two things. You either do what I do, or you drop Silva and you play Chilwell and Disasi and keep Cucurella in. That's the only thing I see to counter like what Brentford are going to do with long balls, with crosses, with set pieces. Like it's not just corners. Like it's everything. Their whole game plan is go long. Like literally Monday Night Football. Thomas Frank was on there the other week. Who was it? I can't remember who played, but he was like. Analysing one of the big games, and he was like, "Yeah, we hit them long."
It wasn't even a big. Wasn't that when Luton played like Sheffield or something, and it was on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I think so. And I was just like, you know what you're going to get for Brentford. So for me, you have to have at least 2 tall defenders in there. Like, say Enzo wasn't fit, you play Ugochukwu. Okay, maybe you play small defenders because you counter that in midfield. But for me, like we have small midfield, we have small attack. You can't play one tall defender. I just don't think it works.
No, I hear it. Like, I think there's a case to be made for it. I mean, I brought it up as well. I think there's definitely a case to be made for it. I just don't think the back line is something that needs changing from the last game because we didn't concede 2 goals because we were poor defensively. We conceded 2 goals because of 2 errors. So like, I'd personally leave it the same, but I could fully understand why people or why, you'd think Disasi needs to come back in for that height element and why Poch might do that. I don't think there's necessarily like a massive right or wrong here. But I personally feel it should just stay the same. There's no reason for any of those guys to miss out, in my opinion. But, it's people view it in different ways and that's cool. But for me, yeah, the only one you would possibly argue with is whether Disasi comes in. And for me, it would harshly be for Cucurella if that happened.
Yeah, I agree. I understand Pies' logic in terms of the height. It makes sense. But I would still stick to this and go by the fact that you don't need to necessarily be taller to not concede from set pieces.
Isn't it mad that we're in a situation where we're discussing that Cucurella shouldn't be dropped out the team?
Yeah, it is. It is a
Like,
bit mad.
mate,
I love it. Yeah, I mean, in a way, I absolutely love it. And that's also what I don't want to ruin, because what does that tell other players? What does that tell other players? If you get the chance after a long time, you play 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, play really well in every single one of them, and then you get dropped as soon as someone comes back from injury. What does that tell the rest of the team?
It kind of sends the wrong message. It basically says that, you know what, no matter how well you play, as soon
I
as
have the ones I want to pick, and those
as soon as this guy's back,
you better hope. What's his name, Janssen or whatever, don't outjump Cucurella tomorrow and score.
Mate, he will. But, yeah, I mean, initially I was very confident that Poch would pick this back four that we have on screen. But I think the height argument, I wouldn't be surprised if it is Kovac left back and then Disasi comes into the middle.
Yeah.
But because me and Charlie went for this one, we're going to keep this back four. And I'll come to the midfield shout, and I'm going to come out with my crazy shout now.
No.
I would leave out Enzo for this game. For the reasons that Poch told us he wasn't fully fit against Arsenal because of the travel. And also Enzo had his second child yesterday. Now, I've not had a child, but I know enough about having a child that shortly after your wife gives birth, you're also, as a man, as a husband, quite busy in terms of you need to look after. You're not going to sleep that much. You're not going to.
I don't think he's changing the nappies, though.
That doesn't matter. But at night, yes, they have a nanny. They're rich people. I get it. But at night, a 3-day-old baby, you're not going to have a nanny looking after. Even if you're still at the hospital, then he's also at the hospital. Do you know what I mean? So he's not going to.
He trained today, though.
I'm sure he did, and I'm not saying he's going to miss work, but he's not going to be at his best if he has 4 hours sleep compared to 8. Do you know what I mean? And
no, I hear it. I personally feel that I'd pick him, and I'd be shocked if he's not in the starting 11 tomorrow.
I would be too. I don't think this will happen. It's just for me.
Yeah.
Because Poch said he wasn't fully fit for Arsenal anyway because of the international break, and now he's had a child. Those things on top of each other, and me, like I explained earlier, wanting Mudryk, Sterling, and Palmer in the team. My logic is I will play Caicedo, and I will play Gallagher, and then I will play Palmer here. That's my logic. And Enzo played every game for us anyway. Give him a rest once or twice. Like, why not? He's not been that amazing the last couple of games.
We'll just give him a rest.
Doing well.
But we'll give him a rest on Wednesday, though. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Like, he won't play on Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay, Vic. But are you an athlete? Yes, you can go to the office and look at your computer or whatever work you do after you've had a child. Absolutely no problem. Also, there is paternity leave. Now, I'm not sure where you're from. In some countries, that isn't a thing, especially for men. But it is in a lot of countries. It is, I'm not sure how much you look after your children, but also his family and stuff. His wife's family is Argentinian. You don't just fly over as easily as if you're, my mum lives next door. Obviously, she's going to come over, look after. They're going to sleep in the same bed. If the baby cries, he's going to wake up and not sleep as well. That's only my logic. Again, I'm not saying anyone has to agree. I would just give Enzo a rest for one game, let Palmer play as a 10, and go with it from there. Purely because, sure, I could also say I play Palmer as a 10, but keep Caicedo and Enzo, and I drop Gallagher. But Gallagher, to me, is very similar to Cucurella, where I'm like, it would be outrageous, quite frankly, to drop Gallagher right now. So, therefore, I'm like, Gallagher played a lot better than Enzo in the last few games.
Gallagher right now is undroppable. I know that might sound an outrageous thing to say, but on his form, he's actually undroppable from this team right now. He is.
And if I want Palmer as a 10, then this is what I have to do. So this is what I have to do. But obviously, if you guys pick something different, majority will take charge, of course. Pys, what do you think about my idea, and what would you do in midfield?
I don't think it's like a, get abuse type shout. Certainly not. I mean, Enzo can't play every Premier League match, but I do think he starts. I think he probably keeps the same.
I agree. I think Poch starts.
I would keep it the same personally. I have a different attack though.
Okay.
But I don't think
the thing for me is, if Palmer starts on the right wing, knowing Poch, Mudryk won't start, and I really want Mudryk to start. So yeah. But I understand you as well. Charlie, would you also go with the same midfield as last time rather than my shout?
Yeah, I'll go with the same as last time.
Fair enough. We'll change it up. Put Gallagher as a 10, even though when it is Gallagher, it's more of a
The
4-3-1.
players usually get left out when they have a new child. I mean, I don't really know.
I mean, Ramsdale was out the squad last week for Arsenal because I think it's because
Yeah,
it wasn't
child a couple of days before. Yeah,
No,
but
I
obviously
think
he lost his place
notice,
anyway, so that's irrelevant because
yeah,
he's
it's
now
a bit, yeah.
You know, the thing is,
I think it's
keep
preference
to,
of the player, isn't it? Preference is it down to the player? And I guess
it's probably also like how does the birth go? Like, is the mum fine? Is the child fine? Like,
and probably the owners. Like Poch was saying, if I left out, because they weren't fresh, if I left them out, the owners would kill me, type thing. So.
Yeah.
They are the two most expensive midfielders in.
I think like they'll be asked, and if he says he's fine to play, he's fine to play. If he's not, I think he would be offered the day off, the time off. But I think
he won't. No, he won't. He won't accept that. He'll want to play.
No, he'll play. He'll play.
Yeah.
But yeah. There's...
I'll take your word for it, Vic. I'll take your. Give me your email because if you're dipping tomorrow,
right?
I think Enzo will start. It's just that I wouldn't for the reasons
I think like he'll definitely be offered it off. I would imagine. Like I can't envisage how the club wouldn't give him the choice. But yeah, I'd be absolutely stunned if he wasn't in the lineup tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'd rather play Lesley deeper than Gallagher though. If I had the choice.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Again, it's more going back to the argument of he's played too well to be dropped. So, yeah, that's my logic on that topic. But I hear you. Regardless, we have the midfield three sorted now because majority takes charge, of course. Cole Palmer, I'm sure, is then the right winger.
Yep.
Charlie, who would you start left wing and striker, and who do you think Poch starts left wing and striker? Because I assume you think this will also be Poch's midfield three and right wing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it picks itself. Left wing for me would be Mudryk to continue. Look, Sterling's done all right. I just think Mudryk, for me, has done better. I think his skill set and his attributes are, I don't want to say they're more useful to the team than
Mudryk played better against Arsenal than Sterling did?
I think a lot of his defensive work is underrated as well. It goes under the radar. Like people
look at
don't
what Madueke
really...
did. It literally cost us a goal by not blocking
people I don't think people realise like how much defensive work Mudryk does and how important it is to the team. And I think you referenced it earlier, mate. Like when the last few games when Mudryk's gone off, like the team has looked worse. I don't think that's like a coincidence.
Me neither.
I actually think that was a coincidence against Arsenal, though. Like I feel like everyone wanted to blame Poch just because.
I won't blame him, but just like, do you know what I mean? It just feels like
it's just whenever Mudryk is off, the opponent are less scared of us.
Yeah,
because other games, but like Mudryk wasn't doing loads in that game against Arsenal. It was only because he scored. Everyone was like, "Oh, look, we took Mudryk off." And
no, but he was still. Like, I thought he still had a pretty good game.
He was all right.
I agree with what you're saying, Pies, but he doesn't need to be doing a lot to be making us better because opponents are scared of him, are scared of his pace mainly. Even more so than obviously even Sterling, right? Because Mudryk is so much faster.
The way I see it, like
that in itself creates more space for others because they are scared of him.
Brentford would much rather have Sterling on the team sheet than Mudryk, and I think that tells you the story for me. Like Brentford would be happy to see Sterling on that. Well, not they'd be delighted, but you know what I mean. They prefer. I feel they prefer to see Sterling start than Mudryk. But
you probably say that about Burnley though, and Sterling was so good against that when they were sitting deeper,
and most of his better games have come against the lesser teams, you could say. Like Luton and Burnley have been his two best games this season. Look, if Sterling starts, we're in another situation where Mudryk doesn't deserve to miss out. He doesn't. So, like, are you going with the experience of Sterling? I understood why Sterling started against Arsenal, but do you really need Sterling to start this game against Brentford?
Honestly, I actually agree with this comment by Mabedi here, saying in tight spaces, Sterling is better than Mudryk, in my opinion, which is why I want both.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, Varna, please. I genuinely do. You want to bet that Gusto doesn't start? Oh,
mate, Gusto is
I'm happy to bet $1,000, mate. Go for it, mate. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. But give me your PayPal details and we sort it out. But yeah, what about up front, Charlie, before I get to Pice on the striker?
Do you know what? I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I wouldn't have a problem sticking with the false nine thing. But I would caveat that with the fact that
would it then be Palmer?
Yeah. And then you'd have Sterling there, yeah. I'd caveat that with the fact that actually, do you know what? Look, we've invested in Jackson. We want him to do well. These are the sort of games where, no disrespect to Brentford, a slightly lower level of opposition, that you want to try and build the confidence of your number 9. And I think it would be a bit of a kick in the bollocks to Jackson if he didn't start this game. And I know football's not about, sentimental decisions or whatever, but I do think that actually this is a game where Jackson, could boost his confidence, get a goal or an assist or whatever, or have a good game, and that sets him up quite nicely for the next couple of games or whatever. So for me, like, I wouldn't be against seeing the false 9 thing again. I liked it. I think it worked well, but I think Jackson.
But did it work well because of the opponent?
Possibly. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the false 9 thing against Spurs. Similar thing, cut off the supply line to Maatsen. I think there's more chance of seeing the false 9 against Spurs. Yeah. So for me, I'd go Jackson for those reasons. You want to try and build his confidence up, and this would be a good game to do that.
Fair enough. Pies, what would be your left wing and striker then? The same?
My left wing and striker, personally, I would go with Mudryk, but yeah, I'd go with Mudryk and I'd go with Jackson. So I would have this, but this is actually, I don't know. I would personally go with Mudryk, Palmer, Sterling, Jackson, and
you're dropping Gallagher.
Yeah, I would drop Gallagher, but that's not.
Well, when I asked you in the midfield, you said you're picking these 3.
Huh?
Well, when I asked you about the midfield, you said you're picking these 3.
To be honest, I got kind of lost of like what we're doing predicted on my one. But
yeah, yes.
Yeah, no, I think when I put my lineup later on my Twitter, I might just say like predicted / what I want, because it's so hard to like take Gallagher out the team. But like, if you just think about it, Gallagher against Brentford, like, do you really think he's going to do anything going forward? Like, I don't know.
No, but he might win us the ball back a lot more than Enzo would, which is why I would.
Yeah, he might. I don't know. He's played really well, but I think I kind of agree with you what you said earlier. Have like all the creative outlets possible in attack, and go from there. But yeah, if I had to predict, it's gonna be Sterling, Gallagher. Yeah, he'll bench Mudryk, I think, and then bring him on is what I would predict. Because I tell you what though, if he does trust Mudryk over Sterling,
I wouldn't be surprised if Charlie has a point. By the way. Maybe just Palmer starts up front again. Because it's not like Jackson really said, "Oh, I need to start next game" when he came on.
No, I don't think the board would like that if you didn't start Jackson. I think Jackson starts based on new signing and everything, trying to get his confidence up. I don't think he'd be on the bench.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I just have to laugh at the chat. Big up Vic and Varner. Hey, if you stay true to your words, I'll take it. I mean, but yeah, it's a tricky one. It's also like the whole Brentford thing is kind of weird because Brentford are not quite as good as they were last season.
Well, no, Tony,
because obviously they don't have Ivan Toney. But when you look at their results, right? Last game, they beat Burnley 3-0. Before that, okay, they lost to United. They drew away to Forest. That's maybe the worst result of the lot. And they lost to Everton. Okay, they lost in the Cup to Arsenal. They lost away to Newcastle. They drew with Bournemouth, all right. They drew with Palace, also all right. But they beat Fulham 3-0 very early in the season. They drew 2-2 with Spurs. Like, that was one of the only times Spurs dropped points. So they kind of had a bit of a mixed bag of a season. So
I think they're 14th at the moment. They're four places below us. So we should
exactly. But still, like I say, they've just had a tough run. Like the games they lost at Old Trafford. They lost to Arsenal was in the cup, but
they should have won. They should have won that game at Old Trafford as well. They fucked it. And they fucked that up right at the end.
You're right. But still, it's Old Trafford. As Brentford, it's okay to not win.
I think the game is as difficult as we make it tomorrow, honestly. I think if we start well and we get an early goal, I think it'd be an easy afternoon. But we can make this difficult, very difficult for ourselves. Because if it's like 60 minutes and it's 1-1 or, we're losing 1-0, we ain't going to win, in my opinion. So, like, it's up to us. And I just don't know with this team we've got on the pitch, if that's got enough to get an early goal and not make it a difficult game.
I don't disagree. But this is the team we went for now as a collective, even if we have slightly differing shouts of like, put Palmer at 10 and Sterling at right wing, but we're undecided about who to drop for it. So, yeah, this is what we ended up with. Let's see what Poch goes with. and let's see how it goes. Pice, are you staying for the last topic? It's not a long one, or do you have to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
Very good. So the last topic I quickly want to touch on is, and it's been reported not just today, but just reiterated by Poch in a press conference today. He says he's talking to the owners and sport directors regarding offensive positions. And there was reports over the last couple of days that Chelsea have now changed their recruitment system a little bit in terms of Pochettino decides what type of player he wants. Then the directors and scouts and all the recruitment team, I guess, they pick a few players that suit what Poch is asking for. And then the manager makes the final decision on who to buy from that selection that the recruitment team came up with. Apparently, that's how City do it as well. Thoughts on that, Pice? On doing it that way? Do you like it?
In reality, it sounds very good, but it kind of comes down to, the talent idea of the coach. And, I think the good thing with us is, like, I don't feel like there's going to be like a huge list. Like, okay, pick one of 7 players. I feel like it'd be like, okay, striker, pick one of these
3 or 4.
Yeah. And all of those, because our like recruitment has actually been really good just in terms of the individual player. On a collective, what we've done, the model, you can argue differently, but the individual players, I think they'll all be really good targets, in my opinion. I do trust that. The only thing that worries me is when I put that tweet out yesterday, all the Spurs fans were laughing in the quotes like, do they know, like, Poch stinks, and like, oh, Poch, Chelsea are finished, Poch is choosing their targets and that type of thing. Like, oh, they've got another Tuchel type thing. So I'm quite scared of that. But you know what? I also want to mention one more thing. I would err on the side of caution. This could quite easily be club PR to put more blame on the manager if things go wrong. I don't actually know if this is going to happen behind the scenes. So I would err on the side of caution on these reports.
Don't you think that the way Poch spoke about it, again, neither of us actually got to watch it. I'm only going by this quote here. But him saying that makes me think he is more involved, if that makes sense. I mean, he even really touched on that a few times in the last couple of weeks, that in the summer he wasn't, but from now on he's more involved in recruitment.
Yeah, I try and find out more myself in the next weeks. But personally, what I think happens is, like, Poch goes to, like, Winstanley and Stewart and says, like, okay, guys, like, I think it would be good if we get like a striker, for example, in January. They go and then find the strikers. They go to Poch, okay, Tony, Osimhen, and say like Jimenez, for example. Like, we feel like A, B, and C would be good for each different reason. Which one do you kind of prefer? And I feel like that's already like, that's kind of what should be happening. But I almost feel like in some occasions, I mean, it's literal fact. Like, surely, like, Badiashile was not, a Potter signing at the time. That was Laurenz Stewart. Like, I do think there's times where they might still go, right, okay, Poch may go, okay, we need a new left back or something next summer. Winstanley and Stewart might just choose that for him. They might go, like, this guy's really good. We think he'd be sick for you, blah, 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 tactical analysis. And Poch just goes, yeah, okay, I agree, sort of thing. I trust you guys. Because, like, if he's...
I mean, it's just about, can they convince him of it, right? Like, that's also
that's the thing. But that's not then his signing, though, is it? But that's not then his signing, though, is it? But
I don't think... Do you think it was worded as such? Because my logic is, if the recruitment team only come up with good players, then Poch can't really ruin it.
Well, yeah, but maybe there's also, like, if this actually does happen, like, say he chooses, like, I don't know, like, we go for a position. Maybe we have to think further down the line. Say we get like I don't know, like another midfielder or whatever, just an example. And like, there's a player that Winstanley and Stewart have on that list that they really like, but Poch chooses someone else. And then it gets later revealed that actually Winstanley and Stewart wanted this guy. Then it's like, okay, then that's Poch's fault. But I don't think it will work like that. I feel like it will still be more of the case of the directors convincing Pochettino of like, okay, this guy's going to be really good for you. This is why, like, type of thing. Like,
what you got to think is, though, if Poch says, let's keep the left back example, right? Let's say he says, I want the left back, and then the recruitment staff will come up, say, let's again an example, come up with 3 players. They will not only try to convince him of one, they will try to convince him of all 3 for various reasons. And then he just gets to pick of those. But if they just pick 3 good ones, how bad can he get it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose if that does happen, then they kind of have to both share the blame. But if it goes wrong,
in my opinion, they always should, right?
Yeah, if it goes wrong, but then, like, I don't know, man. I just, knowing how, tied I am with news and stuff like that, I just see these reports of kind of like, this kind of happens at Man U. It's like, if there's a signing and it goes wrong, it's like, oh, it was a Ten Hag signing. Ten Hag wanted that.
Yeah, it's
Happened
true.
a bit with Tuchel as well. And it's like, well, no, it wasn't a Tuchel signing, was it? Like, remember the Anthony Gordon thing? Apparently, it was due to the data analysis that apparently, remember that report that came out, like a couple months later, and it was like, oh, so Tuchel caught all this heat for nothing. So
But obviously, the part we don't know is
like,
maybe it was data analysis, and then on the basis of that data analysis, Tuchel was like, "Okay, I want him." Do you know what I mean? So it can still be.
No. I remember at the time it was like Tuchel personally identified him because he
No,
played
no,
well.
no, I know that was the initial report. You're obviously right.
Yeah,
but
so
then, as in when the next report came out, that doesn't mean the initial thing on Tuchel is necessarily wrong. He could have still wanted Gordon, but the data analysis also.
I mean, to be fair, Gordon's. I'm not saying we should have signed him, but he's actually been all right at Newcastle. I don't think he's.
Right.
But to be fair, I feel like Newcastle, you could literally send them, I don't know, Hudson-Odoi on one leg, and somehow
isn't it mad that like there was all that outrage about Lewis Hall leaving? Can't even kick a ball for Newcastle.
While for us, he'd probably start every game right now.
Mate, Lewis Hall's a fucking great player. I hope he somehow comes back. I love Lewis Hall.
Yeah,
the fact Dan Burn plays ahead of him. Like, I mean, I'm not saying Lewis Hall's shit, but like he's not getting a look in at all at Newcastle right now.
But that's because it's Dan Burn. It feels like a bit more of a tactical reason than anything else. Because if you choose to play a 6'6" or whatever he is, left back over someone like Lewis Hall, then for me that's more of a tactical reason rather than saying, Dan Burn is better than Lewis Hall, because they're just so different. That
Ousmane Dembele hardly did anything against Dan Burn, to be fair. So.
Yeah, true.
Dan Burn is absolutely
I think like
the guy's not even that bad.
Like Hall's probably is obviously a better footballer than Dan Burn, but for what Eddie Howe wants from his back line, like Dan Burn hasn't done anything wrong.
Can't forget, Lewis Hall don't even want to play left back. So
I mean, maybe
that gives Lewis Hall a chance.
Maybe Tonali, maybe Lewis Hall can step in there, but then Joe Willock's back as well. Does Willock go and play in that midfield? Like there's options there.
Although Willock isn't quite as defensive though as Tonali, is he? But there you go. I mean, Charlie, what do you think about how apparently the recruitment is going to go now? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you also worry from the perspective, could Poch pick someone bad? Because the only thing I'll say is, if Poch says, let's say a random name, let's say Poch says, I want to sign. Who can I think of?
Someone from Tottenham or something like.
Yeah, or let's say Paqueta, right? Paqueta. Let's ignore the betting charges against him as well, or the betting accusations. Let's say he wants Paqueta, and then they're like, okay, we're signing Paqueta. That's what I don't want. But if Poch says, I want a number 10, as an example, I know we have plenty, so that's not going to happen. Just an example. And then the recruitment team offer him 3, and then he picks one of those 3. I think that's good. But if he picks a name, I don't think that's so good. If that
I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's like my understanding from it. This is kind of exactly how it should work. The manager identifies a tactical profile that he wants. He identifies a position that he wants. The guys go away and do their thing. Bring back a list of however many it is, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Yeah. And you might not get your first choice. You're probably gonna need to pick a couple from the list. And then go away and try and make it happen. That I think you have to trust the manager, give the manager the responsibility of picking the player, and then trusting the recruitment team, the scouts and whatnot, to go and find good enough players to fill the positions. That even like if there's 3 on there or 4 on there, or whatever, you pick a couple, they're going to be decent players anyway. So look, for me, this is
I don't have to be within budget, right? So
of course, but I look at it and think this is how it should work. And, I don't think you can go too far wrong. If like 4 or 5 decent players are coming back, then you've got to put trust in the manager to pick the ones that he thinks are going to be best for his system. So I haven't got any problem with this. And I think it's exactly the way that things should be working.
There you go. I kind of agree, if I'm being perfectly honest, mate. I kind of agree. And obviously, there's a little bit of kind of where you can argue, let's see how it goes. But I still think in an ideal world, this is how it should go. So yeah. I'm happy with them going for this. If it then doesn't work out, fair enough. Then we have to, reassess the situation. But in general, I think this is the way to go about it in an ideal world. If it then doesn't work, not ideal, but it should work because we seem to have a good recruitment team. And if Poch says this is the type of player I would like to make my tactics work, as long as he's right about that and doesn't misprofile his own tactics, I don't really see how it goes wrong, if I'm being perfectly honest. But we're about to finish it off. We finish it off with a score prediction. First 12:30 kickoff of the season, by the way. So that's interesting. At least it's at home. 12:30 away is always a tough one, but at home is a bit better. So what are you expecting? Pys, you were quite negative last time ahead of Arsenal. You said we'd lose 3-1. We drew 2-2 in the end, but we were probably more depressed than if they just played us off the park and beat us 3-1. So what do you reckon for tomorrow then?
I'll go 2-1 Chelsea. I think a late goal from us actually this time.
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? That'd be nice. I love a late winner. Do you know what I mean? Charlie, what about you? What would you say?
Well, I was going to say exactly the same. I think it'll be a lot closer than people might expect. But I think we'll just nick it 2-1.
Fair dues. My prediction is going to be 2-0. And my prediction is that it's 1-0 for a very long time. And then we get a 2-0 late on. That's how I think it's going to go. One thing I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, before we round this one out, is I will unfortunately not be able to stream after the game tomorrow, which is a bit sad. I'll try to either tomorrow night or more likely on Sunday still talk about the game. Not sure if we're going to do it as player ratings as such or not. I'll have to figure it out, but we're going to try our best. So yeah. That's essentially the plan, unfortunately. But we're going to round this one out. So please do subscribe to Charlie's channel. You can see it at Blue Brother CFC is his YouTube tag. Link is down in the description below. Of course, just hit it. Go to Charlie's channel, subscribe. And of course, check out Pys's website, londonsfirst.com, as well as his Twitter, obviously, and a few other things that we might have coming up from Pys that now, because I'm not streaming tomorrow, we can't talk about tomorrow, but maybe the week after we'll touch on that for you guys so you can get involved with that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button for me because that helps to spread these streams out to more people. And please promise me, I'm not streaming after the game tomorrow. If it's on Sunday, come back on Sunday and we'll talk about the game there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.